Welcome to Haunt Weekly.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jonathan.
I'm Crystal.
And this is Haunt Weekly, a weekly podcast for the haunted attraction, haunted entertainment community. Whether you're an actor, owner, or just plain aficionado, we aim to be a podcast for you. And we return to you this week with what I know sounds like should be the most boring, mundane, pedestrian topic we can think of in haunting.
It's not parking.
Oh, that is true. We did a whole hour on fucking parking. I forgot. But you know what? Actually, that one ended up being entertaining, too, because we did that right as we were very pissed off at some haunts for parking issues.
And very new. That's something that's one of the ones that we might go back and revisit.
Yeah, that's definitely one we need to revisit, I think, because, yeah, new light has been shed on that.
Yeah.
And a lot of it actually comes from Facebook groups like Haunters Hangout and so forth, learning about the challenges haunts have had, especially in COVID times. They've been dealing with wild influxes of humanity.
Right.
So yeah, there's a lot there. That's not a bad idea. I might want to put that down on the future list to revisit. And if we do publish that episode as a mundanity back-to-back, you'll find it at hauntweekly.com, Haunt Weekly on Facebook, Haunt Weekly on Twitter, youtube.com/HauntWeekly is the YouTube channel. A great way to get caught up on any episodes you missed that might have slipped out of your podcast doohickey thingy. And you can always catch us at Google Play, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts from. We're there. Mm-hmm. We're everywhere, man. So yeah, we're talking about group size today. We're talking about the size of the groups you should be allowing in your haunt. And more specifically, we're focusing on maximum group size. Because that gets way more debate and discussion than minimum group size. Mm-hmm. But when we raised this topic last week on the question of the week, we made sure to include the minimum, because I did want to hear what people had to say about it. I was curious. Yeah. And so last week's question of the week was, what is the current maximum/minimum group size you allow? And we got a surprisingly consistent answer. The vast majority gave an answer of somewhere between 4 to 8. In fact, I think literally 4 to 8 was the most common answer. Like 4 is the min, 8's the max.
Yeah.
Like we will try to pair up threesomes and twosomes with other people, and we'll break up larger than 8, basically is what they were saying.
Yeah. And
I found it very amazing it was that consistent. We did have some good ones that I wanted to call out, though. Sam Farrell said it's 4 to 6. They have an elevator scene. Yeah, I can see why. That's the same reason we're at 4 is tiny rooms. Mm-hmm. They have 4 to 6 with elevator scenes. They tried doing 1 to 2, but it murdered the throughput. We might be coming back to that point.
Yes. Alex Richardson said 3 to 4 typically, but had to do groups of 10 to 12 due to turnout.
Yeah, they had a gangbusters year last year, apparently, and had to ramp it up to 10 to 12, which that would be... If you're an actor or haunter that's used to a group size of like 3 to 4, and now you're suddenly getting 10 to 12, I got a lot of questions about how that went for the actors and how good the show was. Because, if you haven't designed your haunt and your actors aren't practiced on that size of a group, it's a very different world.
It is.
So that's my only worry with that. But I understand it. I do understand it. In fact, we're going to be talking about that too. Mm-hmm. Anthony Hopkins was in Silence of the Lambs. Kevin Hopkins.
Jesus, you're not going to get his right name.
I got it right on the 3rd try, okay? Better than I do sometimes. It's like, how long was he Ryan McGregor on the podcast?
Yeah, I know.
Ryan Gregor, poor Ryan Gregor. Kept making him Irish for no reason whatsoever. But yes, Captain Hopkins says we run 4 to 8 per group, and they found for them that more than 8 begins to bunch up, and the throughput benefit kind of gets hurt.
Okay.
And of course, there's one outlier. There's always got to be who Timothy Gretter just said one word, 1. Mm-hmm. Which, I mean, hey, that is...
Which is interesting. I would want to hear from Timothy whether or not he reconsiders that based on the article that we talked about in last week's news.
Yeah, I mean, and we're going to be covering it more here, too, because That study really did kind of make the foundation for this episode because it seemed like a great time to revisit this topic. We've never done a whole episode on it, but we've touched on it a bunch of times. Mm-hmm. He won running some kind of extreme solo experience haunt. I'm curious how that works from a financial perspective.
Yeah.
Because that is the hardest way to get throughput. Is one at a time. It is damn near impossible. And let's say you get one in every minute. That's 60 people per hour.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where, like, if I'm doing, say, 8 people every minute, that's 8 times 60 is 240. No, it's not more than 240. It's shit. I don't do math well in my head, okay? I admit that.
Wait, you said 8 times 60?
Yeah, 8 per minute is 480.
480, yeah. I'm like 6 times 8 is
48. No, it's 48. It's 480. Yeah, I know, okay? It's late on a Sunday. I'm tired. I'm way too sober for this.
And you're trying to do this on the fly.
Yeah, I'm trying to do this part on the fly. So yeah, a lot of interesting responses, and we're going to go ahead and ask this week's question of the week. And that is, what is your haunt policy on actor-created characters? This might be coming up next week's episode.
Maybe.
So, what is your haunt's policy on actor-created characters? Ours is no-go.
Yeah.
We will... Yes and no to that. Front of house, we have more leniency with it because it's nothing to do with the theming inside the haunt.
Yeah, and as long as you fit the theme inside the haunt, you can pretty much be that type of character.
Yeah.
But, like, if we have a doctor scene, you have to be a doctor.
Yeah.
Or a nurse. Something from the medical field.
We really do, and one of the things I do love about our actors is they are very creative people, and they'll say, okay, so this is a doctor scene. What if the doctor does this, this, and this? And give me, give feedback on the way the character can move, interact, and motivations and so forth, the things they can say and interact with the audience.
Yeah.
And that's great, because, that means oftentimes the characters we envisioned come out radically different in haunt. But it's in a way that everybody's passionate about now.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, we'll allow some custom created characters, actor created characters in front of house. And part of that's because, like I said, we have the whole carnival theme out there. And you can realistically fit just about anything in that type of scene without breaking immersion, without,
Right. And that's really a disjunct. The front of house and the inside of the haunt they don't really connect.
No, they're not supposed to.
No.
We don't want them to.
No.
We want you to enter that haunt and feel like you've been taken into a whole other world. We want you to be a fish out of water the minute you get into that first room.
Exactly.
And be flopping around like a little fish in the flow. So yeah, that's our general policy. Sometimes front of house, pretty much never inside, but with a lot of leeway for actors to pitch suggestions for the characters they do have.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty much it. So that is, once again, what is your haunt's policy on this? Is your haunt very happy to allow people to bring their characters? Could I waltz up with Bernie Baxter and work in your haunt? Or, would I be playing something, very specific and very directed by the haunt? Let us know. HauntWeekly.com, Haunt Weekly on Facebook, Haunt Weekly on Twitter, and YouTube.com/HauntWeekly. Leave comments, likes, messages. We read them all. No, admittedly, we've been having an issue with Facebook messages not notifying us. This has happened a few times now, where things just got missed. And because we're not getting the alert there. I get the alerts on, my other pages, but not on Haunt Weekly. And I guess it may be because we have 2 administrators. And
yeah, I think that happens sometimes, because I know that I've pointed out, hey, this comment's to you.
Yeah.
So go check it out.
Yeah, and I didn't. I just literally did not get an alert.
Yeah.
And if you ever run a Facebook page, you know how much of a pain that is, because the Facebook page messages is buried under 16 layers of shit you got to go through. It's just a mess.
Yeah. They keep changing it.
So let us know what your haunt's policy is. I will be curious. So anyways, as we were saying in the intro, this is a super boring seeming episode here. A really weird focus. And the way I think about it is this, and the reason we're talking about it is, it's the most important mundane decision you'll likely make regarding your haunt. It's a decision that is so mundane, very few haunts give it serious thought. They just kind of come up with a number they think works for them, and maybe they'll tweak it here and there, but...
Yeah, but it's basically as people show up,
Yeah.
Is that a good number? Sure, why not?
We're winging it.
Yeah.
But it's the most important mundane decision you'll make. It impacts every aspect of the haunt.
Mm-hmm.
It can determine how much money you make. That's an important one. It can determine the experience of your customers. It greatly impacts the experience of your actors.
Mm-hmm.
It also has a role in the wear and tear of your haunt and your props. And your actors, too, your human component. And it also impacts your marketing and promotion, especially if you're doing, like, our friend the outlier there, Timothy, that's a unique selling point.
Mm-hmm.
You can put that in every piece of marketing literature you put out there. Say, you're going alone, asshole.
Exactly.
Maybe don't phrase it exactly like that, but you can put that in the marketing, and that can be part of your unique selling point and part of your marketing.
You could just name it.
And if you have larger groups, you can switch your marketing up to help people bring the family.
Yeah.
Bring your friends, grab a buddy, do some 2-for-1 deals, or discounts on like more than 4 tickets or something.
Yeah.
If you have larger group size, you can flip the script. But anyways, so the focus I wanted to do today is not to tell you what the ideal number is. There isn't.
No.
There's no single answer to that question.
No.
Every haunt has to make the decision for themselves. But here's the thing. It needs to be a fucking decision.
Yeah, it definitely does. And I know that there are some haunts that we've been to where they've counted out the number of people. Mm-hmm. And, they have some flexibility, 1 or 2 people, so that if a couple's next, they can go with the group in front of them that's smaller.
And I think that way makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And I know there are some, like I think that was an issue at Terror on the Coast, was that if they have a small group, they will literally call for couples further back in line.
Yeah, that was annoying.
That was no bueno for a lot of reasons. And the biggest being that it contributed to the murder of the throughput they had.
Yeah, and this might be... That might be an issue that they've resolved. Because that was
4 or 5 years ago. Yeah,
at least. Yeah,
it was a while ago. We do want to go back. We want to check it out. We have heard good things about the more recent shows. It's just a hard one for us to get to.
Yeah,
it's basically right on the edge of the haunt radius we have. Mm-hmm. It's like right there on the edge of what we can do. So, anyways, your group size can literally be the difference between a popular and financially successful haunt and one that falls to pieces on opening night or every night of the week and never makes any real money. It can happen both ways. This is a very important decision, and I want haunts to actually think about it. And that includes home haunts and smaller haunts.
Yeah, exactly. And, if you're new to the podcast and new to haunting, this is definitely something you want to consider that you might not have thought of that you needed to consider.
Yeah, and if you're thinking, I'm going to open my first haunt in October, now's a great time to start pondering it. Mm-hmm. Now actually is the best time.
Yeah.
All right, got a little frog in my throat, and I don't know what that's about.
I don't know either.
Yeah, anyway, the most important thing you need to think about right off the bat, you know what we're going to say. If you listen to this podcast long enough, you know what we're leading off with. It ain't a shock. We're at least going to pay some lip service to it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's safety! Wow, that sounded like a really bad short from Riff Tracks. We're the safety twins, kids! Oh, dear God!
How bad is this going to go off the rails?
I can hear Bill Corbett making horrible jokes now. Oh, God, no. But anyways, basically the problem is this. Only so many bodies can fit in a space safely.
Right.
Period.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
We're done. That's the end of that. That's done.
Yeah. And I mean, you also have to think about all of those bodies when they go through doorways or narrow hallways that are still ADA compliant, but,
And also if you have any claustrophobia tunnels or anything like that, you won't run into trouble. I mean, so basically think about the size of your rooms. Mm-hmm. If they're small rooms, you might not be able to hold more than 4 people in a room.
Exactly.
That's our problem.
It is.
And we know it.
Yeah.
And we've done 5 a few times.
Yeah, every time you call out 5 coming in, it sends panic.
Yeah, and I don't blame them. It's usually because we're running a huge line on Halloween.
Yeah.
And there's a group that is refusing to split.
Yeah.
And it's just like, and
it's easier to get them through and get them out.
And I get the panic, and I hate doing it.
Yeah.
Believe me, nobody is cringing more than I.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, think about the size of your rooms. Also, think about the strength of your walls, your props, and other things. Because people get scared. If you're really scaring people, accidents can happen. People can fall down.
Right.
People bump into things. And if you have, say, 4 adults, just 4, that is half a ton of human meat hitting your shit.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding.
Yes.
It is literally a half ton. There's a reason we concrete anchor everything. Mm-hmm. Even though I hate concrete drilling, concrete screwing more than anything else in the world.
I know. But it saved our bacon more than once.
Oh, but dear God, it is so valuable
at
keeping those walls in position. Because, yeah, we can secure them with the top frame really well, and they won't act like they're going to move. But if a group of 4 collapses or hits at the bottom, that bottom part can get kicked out pretty easy. And it might not be possible, or in the heat of the moment, to kick it back into place.
Yeah.
We've had that happen, so we learned our lessons. Also, what about crowd control if there's an incident? What happens if this group of 8 friends going through suddenly gets scared, one of them does something like pulls one of them in front of the monster or something like that, and then the fight breaks out? Not between your actors necessarily, just between them.
Yeah.
What happens? What was your crowd control there? What happens if there's a fire?
Or other emergency.
Or any other emergency. What if someone has a stroke or a heart attack in the haunt? Yeah. So basically, the thing here is this. Work with all parties who are invested in this. That's your actors, your security team, your local fire marshals, police, anyone else.
Yeah, and they'll also let you know if you have to be limited by occupancy limits. And that includes your actors working inside the haunt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you may be limited by occupancy. Just find out what the good size is for safety, or at least here you found a theoretical maximum for what it can be.
Yes.
But look at it from a safety standpoint first and foremost, because that will pretty much set your maximum. You cannot go above this. You may, not actually want to go to that point, because what if the actual maximum you can do after all the chips are in place is 10, but you know that going above 8 doesn't make sense. You may not go all the way to the limit here.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to say. Use it as your theoretical maximum, and then find what works underneath that maximum. Now, the second issue is probably the most obvious for haunters, and it's throughput. And we talked about throughput a lot of times before, but it's worth a quick recap.
Yes, and you don't know how many times I have heard Jonathan expound upon the throughput of haunts as we leave them. It's like doing the math in his head.
Oh, yeah. If I'm visiting your haunt, this is true.
Yeah.
I will sit there if I can see the exit. And most haunts in this area, you can see the exit from the queue line area, which is a good thing to do. That helps people in the queue line get hyped because they see the people running out and they get excited. So it's a good thing to do. And I encourage it whenever you can do it. But I will sit there with my Apple Watch, starting a stopwatch, and I will count the number of groups that get out in, say, 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And I'll know, okay, they got 6 groups out in that time, and we know their maximum group size is 6. So they have a theoretical maximum of 36. Well, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We know approximately, we can get an idea of their throughput. Now, there's 2 numbers to concern yourself with. The first is the theoretical. And then the theoretical is the max number of groups you can get in per hour. And basically that is number of people plus times the minutes of separation time between them. How many you can get in an hour. And that is your theoretical maximum. That means if you're running full tilt, every group is at the maximum number of people, and you are running at flawless max capacity, which, good on you, good sir, if you've ever had that happen for longer than like 10 minutes.
Christ, we've had that happen once.
We've had it happen once, and it is brutal.
Absolutely.
We've had it happen once, and the thing is, it didn't happen long.
No.
It happened over like a 30-minute span.
Yeah.
And it is fucking murder on everyone involved.
Yeah.
We actually hit our theoretical. Most haunts I find will hit somewhere between 60 and 90% of their theoretical, because the other number to worry about is the actual.
Exactly.
And that is the actual heads that go through the goddamn haunt in an hour.
Yeah.
That's just 1, little 2, little 3, little piggy, and I'm not going
Yeah.
You know. So yeah, you're counting the sheep as they leave the stall, you know.
Yeah.
And then you fall asleep because you were counting sheep. Why were you counting sheep while you were working on a haunt, you dumbass? Now you're asleep. And no, I have no idea where this is going.
Oh, we know. But okay.
I'm just riding this derail train right into whatever station it lands at.
So yeah, almost always the actual number is lower.
Yeah, if you actually score a higher actual throughput than your theoretical, it's because your theoreticals, you miscalculate your theoretical.
Yeah, you thought your haunt took too long, or
you overestimate how long it took between groups, or you didn't count for the right group size, or whatever. You made a misjudgment somewhere in your theoretical. If your actual is higher than your theoretical, go recalculate your theoretical.
Yeah.
So yeah, the actual number is always lower. At least it should be if you did it right.
Yeah.
But yeah, and the reason it's lower is pretty simple. Things don't work perfectly. Humans are involved, both on the working side and the customer side.
Yeah.
And either side can fuck it up pretty good.
Yeah. They're very good at that.
Humans are very good at fucking things up. You can quote me on that. We are experts at fucking things up. So yeah. And the other problem is that groups are typically not filled to the max, especially if you have a more difficult maximum like 6 to hit. You're not going to get a lot of 6s unless you're force pairing every foursome with a twosome.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just polyamorous life.
Yeah.
But seriously, though, so you're not going to hit your max group size every fucking group over the course of an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the issue of it simply not being possible. It just literally is physically impossible to do this. And that's why it's a theoretical maximum. You want to raise your theoretical maximum, because if you raise the theoretical, your actual will go up. At least it should. But it's never going to match it or meet it. And that's fine. That's kind of the goal.
Yeah.
It'd be like having a 1,000 batting average.
Yeah, the one year that we did it, it was non-stop and crazy, and everybody was tired after. And luckily, it ended right at our closing time.
Yeah.
Our stated closing time. So everybody just slumped in their spots.
Yeah, that was a rough year.
It was a good year.
It was a good year, but it was a demanding year physically for everyone. So yeah. Now, as a haunter, you have 2 ways to control throughput. You can let in more groups. You can reduce the spacing between groups from 2 minutes to 1 minute, or 1 minute to 30 seconds.
Right.
Or you can, if you want to go the other way, you can increase it. The other thing you can do is change group size. You can allow bigger or require smaller groups. And that will, of course, raise your throughput.
Right.
But yeah, basically it's pretty simple. Larger groups, especially if they're more frequent, more throughput.
Yeah.
That's more theoretical throughput and almost certainly more actual throughput. Mm-hmm. That said, as one of our commenters noted, there is a point of diminishing returns here.
Yes, definitely.
You gotta watch this, because past a certain side, it's basically clogging up the pipes.
Exactly. There are too many people trying to get to the same spot. And then it just...
Like a good example is, when we walked into my office today to record this, we're recording this live in my office.
But not live.
Not live. But we did it. We had to go through a doorway.
Yes.
Now, with the 2 of us, the doorway was no challenge. Other than the fact that your chair was in the way. But let's ignore the chairs for the inconvenient placement of the chairs. The doorway was no challenge. We were able to get through. But if there were 8 of us trying to pile in that doorway all at once, the doorway suddenly becomes a lot trickier to navigate.
Yeah.
And you either have to move slower and more carefully through it, or you just have a big clusterfuck in the doorway.
Exactly.
So there comes a point where your group size diminishes that return by, you've got 12 people in a fucking group, but they can't get around this bend. They can't get through that doorway well. And there's also the issue in which a group can only move as fast as its slowest member. So let's say you've got a group of 8 people.
I don't know. I've seen some groups take off and just leave the slow person
That
behind.
is true. But then again, at that point, I would argue philosophically they're 2 separate groups.
Yeah. Well, they do become that, yes.
But yeah, so again, a good example of the problem is if you're a twosome going through a haunt slowly, others will find it very easy to play through, so to speak.
Yeah.
Can we just go around you so we're moving faster? And we've done that before.
Oh, yeah. We see people running and screaming towards us. We just step to the side. Go on.
Go on, kind sir and lady.
Yeah.
Make your merry way to the next horror.
Mm-hmm.
And what we'll do is if we do that, we'll wait and make sure they get at least a few rooms past us before we resume.
Yeah.
That way all the actors can reset. And also get over what the fuck was that?
Yeah.
That was just a streak of color that passed. So yeah, we will do that. And that's not a huge disruption. But if we were a group of 12, that's not something we can do as easily.
No, and we have had it where, it was us going through and a group was let in behind us, but they were moving faster than us, but the walkways were too narrow to let them pass. So then we've got these strangers holding on to us for dear life.
Yeah, it's kind of weird when you're in a haunt and the people grabbing you aren't the actors.
Not that
Not that the actors should.
They should in a non-touch haunt, as we just talked about. But
yeah. Point remains, though, it is a weird thing.
Yeah.
But yeah. So yeah, basically, if you're trying to increase throughput, you're probably better off trying to get more groups in an hour than increasing group size.
Right.
I think you'll get less diminishing returns that way. Because like I said, and I think that, who was it that mentioned the 4 to 8? Yeah, that was, Kevin, again. Anthony Hopkins, as he will forever be known now. Anthony Hopkins said, after 8, it starts to bunch up. I think that's actually a very good estimate of when that would start to happen.
Yeah.
I think that tracks with what I've seen in haunts, too. Mm-hmm. Because we do not go through haunts very quickly.
No.
We move at a consistent pace. We're not lollygagging.
No.
But it's a consistent, determined pace. We're looking at things. We're wanting to enjoy it. Mm-hmm. And so if you're running through the haunt, and God knows you shouldn't do that, but people do. If you're running through the haunt, well, you're going to blow by us.
Yeah.
But here's the
crash
thing.
into
Or crash into us. Every group that has passed us, pretty much without fail, has been either 2 to 4.
Yeah. Exactly.
Every group we've crashed into has been 6 or above.
Yeah.
Is that about right?
Yeah, that sounds, exactly. Because we like to go through and study the different techniques and look at the detail that everybody put in, because not a lot of people
and see the construction, see how they built it, and see how they're acting, what their scare tactics are. We're there both to enjoy it, but also to learn.
Yeah, exactly.
It's meant to be like infotainment for us.
Yeah.
So basically, group size can help with throughput, even if it maybe shouldn't be the first thing you lean on. Also, remember to do a business check. You know how many customers you need every night to break even. Mm-hmm. Is that even possible with your current throughput?
Yes. So does your theoretical throughput have enough leeway in it that you
can make money
without having to be the theoretical throughput every night?
Exactly. Okay, the next issue is customer experience. Now, this is where things get fucky. Mm-hmm. Because, go back to last week. If you did not listen to last week's news episode, it's definitely one worth listening to. If you do not want to listen to the whole hour episode, though, there is a link in the show notes to a study that talks about, they've studied fear responses in haunted attractions, basically. They set up a haunted attraction, they let people through, they're monitoring their vitals, and they found that if people go through haunts with friends, they have a much stronger fear response than when they go through alone.
Yeah.
To me, that feels so backwards. But their explanation, which was an astute explanation, I thought, was that the people are seeing the fear responses of people they know and trust and value the opinion of.
Right.
And when they start freaking out, they freak out. So even if, maybe they didn't get hit by the scare, the fact they see their friend 1 or 2 spaces above them in the line get hit and start screaming, they're going to respond to that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, and here's the thing. It's just one study. One study does not necessarily science make.
No.
It needs to be replicated, and I'd feel better about it if there was 2 or 3 more hanging out there saying something similar. But given that this is such a tiny niche, it may not be something that's repeated. So yeah, but basically this points out that if you're hesitating to increase group size because you want to keep people scared, maybe some of that fear should be eased.
Yeah. Put it to 2 people.
Yeah. Yeah. So at least that. And also it points that maybe splitting groups up to make them more scared doesn't work.
Right.
Like Dead Rising in Chicago was big about this. They would, like, you and I went in separate groups because they detected who the couples were and broke us apart in a fairly organic way, granted.
Yeah.
Broke us apart into different groups. So we went with, other than the fact we rode on the bus with them there, complete strangers to us.
Exactly.
And that was, it was an interesting experience, and I don't think that improved the haunt for me. It was still a good haunt. It had a lot of great and interesting things going for it, but that was not one of the reasons why I enjoyed it, and we still talk and think about it. Make sense?
It does.
That was more of a footnote to me. So anyway, but yeah, customers in general want to go with a group they came with. They want to go with their family. They want to go with their friends. They want to go with their dates. They want to go with whoever. They don't want to go with strangers or by themselves.
Yeah. Exactly.
Now, that said, of course, some will come in huge groups that may be impossible to keep together.
Yeah. And, it was interesting because when we were split up for that one time, I found myself being more bold.
Yeah, me too.
And taking more of a leading role.
Yeah, me too.
Because, the actor asked questions and nobody else answered, and you weren't there to answer because you talk more than I do.
We might have noticed it, yes.
So then I had to answer and speak up.
Yeah. And that's interesting because I noticed I felt a little more emboldened too, because I'm here with strangers. What the fuck do I care what they think of me?
Exactly.
After this weekend, I'm never going to see any of them again.
Yeah, and that's something my dad taught me a long time ago.
You don't give a crap about these people.
Exactly. You're never going to see them again. Do what you want.
They'll be dead to you in just a few hours.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Although, we did see them again because they're haunters and we see them at conventions.
Well, okay. That happens. But anyways. But, yeah. So, just think about that and keep this especially in mind with any group rates you offer. Still, you should know what the average group size is that's coming there. You should know what your most common thing is. We get mostly families. Yeah. So we have a lot of 3s and 4s. But if you're a pro haunt, you may get a lot of dates. You may get a lot of teen friend groups. You may get something completely different from us. You probably do. So yeah, just adjust. If it can be accommodated, though, it absolutely, I think, should. I truly believe the best customer experience is when families and groups are kept together. It's a shared experience between them. They can discuss it and hang out and relish in it later. And a lot of the discussion isn't, for the record, oh, yeah, did you see that goat person that jumped out in the swamp scene or whatever? It's, did you see the face you made when that goat person jumped out in the swamp scene?
Exactly.
That's what they're talking about.
They're talking about their reactions.
Yeah. And they can't have that shared experience if they're not together. Yeah. So stop and think about that. And yeah, and like we learned last week, it can be stronger fear reactions. I wish we had another study coming out on this that would hopefully support it or refute it, one or the other. I want to know, goddammit. Yeah. It sounds so counterintuitive. Yeah, I agree with anyone that says that. But I'm not going to argue with the fucking science.
No, not at all.
All right. The next issue to consider is the wear and tear on people or things. Now, there are some things that the wear and tear will be flat based on the number of people. Yeah. The flooring in your haunt, it depends how many shoes walk across it, not how many groups you have.
And what kind of flooring you have.
What kind of flooring you have to get. Yeah. But basically, every prop, and it doesn't matter how well made it is, can only activate a certain number of times before it needs repair. Larger groups mean fewer activations. If you get 1,000 people go into your haunt one night, I'm just trying to make the numbers easy for me, and they come in groups of 10, that prop activates 100 times. Mm-hmm. If they come in groups of 5, now it's activating 200 times.
Yeah. And that's about how we build our things, is to accommodate 1,000 people, 1,000 to 1,500 uses.
Yeah. Now, there are obviously ways, so larger group means fewer activations, your props are doing less, your electronics are doing less. Mm-hmm. All that stuff is taking less burden. And also, it's the same is true for the actors. Because even the greatest actor, who's taking good care of themselves and doing a great job, they can only do so many scares in a night before exhaustion catches up with them, before their voice gives out.
And before it's not fun.
Yeah.
I mean, surprisingly. Like, I've only been in that situation a few times where we've been so busy that it just became not fun.
Yeah,
and I was just ready to be done.
You're going through the motions.
Yeah.
Trust me, I think we've all felt that. Yeah. So obviously you can teach and should teach your actors ways to limit, how to scream right, how to move right so you don't get hurt, and basically how to avoid repetitive motion injuries and so forth. But larger groups does mean fewer interactions for each actor, less likely they will damage themselves. Mm-hmm. And your actors may be able to go that little bit harder because of it.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah. Larger groups mean that more, but the downside of it, though, is that larger groups means more people miss props and scares. And we've had this happen to us a lot when in larger groups. If, for example, if you have a group of 8 people and a scare actor pops out at the middle of the group, before the 3, 4, 5 people right there in the center, it's very likely that the first person and the last person completely missed it.
Yeah.
And got nothing from it.
Exactly. I mean, there's been some times where you've gotten a scare, and I didn't see what happened at all. Yeah.
And there was one time in which we had a group, I think it was a fright trail. This was really annoying, because a group went ahead of us. It was one of the times we were paired with 2 people, and they fucking bolted on us.
Yeah, this was the first year we went there.
Yeah.
I know where you're talking about.
Yeah, they addressed a lot of the issues since. But the group bolted, but we kept almost catching up with them. They would hit the buildings and slow down.
Yeah.
And so we would get in this weird position where we're not in a group with them, and we can only sometimes, on the rarest occasions, glimpse them. But they're activating all the props, and they're not reactivating for us. They don't have enough reset time.
Right. Exactly. Even with us trying to stay back.
Even with us making a concerted effort to stay back. And even with them, in some cases, fucking running like their lives depended on it.
Exactly. Yeah, it was crazy.
Just something to think about. Mm-hmm. So yeah, this brings us to the topic that no one wants to broach, but we have to.
The dreaded Conga line.
Da 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 da.
No.
Da 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 da. Okay, anyways, we've all seen it. Many of us have done it. We've all been in one.
Yeah.
Guarantee you, if you go to enough haunts, you've done one. There are times where it is necessary. Basically, the result of this is to get the queue cleared, groups are not separated, and everyone is sent in the Conga line. This is what House of Shock used to do pretty much constantly.
Yeah, like 100 people at a time.
Like 100 people at a time, forming what essentially amounted to a Conga line of humanity. You always saw at least 10 people in front of you, and if you look behind you, there's 10 people behind you.
Yeah, so you never felt alone.
No. And you never felt like you were with just your friends.
No. And you knew that there were other people there.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, and it's even worse, though, and this has happened a few times, they form organically inside a haunt.
Yeah.
Ish. This is a problem with inadequate group spacing.
And I think with haunt design.
Yeah, haunt design, too.
Something went wrong in your design.
Like Hell's Gate is I really do think every haunter should take that behind-the-scenes tour of Hell's Gate.
Yeah.
That's one of the few haunted attraction experiences I think every haunter needs to do.
Yes. I completely agree.
Not necessarily every haunt fan.
Right.
But every haunter definitely needs to do it. Because, John LaFlamboy basically got an opportunity and a shit ton of money and said, I'm going to build a haunt in the middle of these fucking woods from the ground the fuck up, literally starting by clearing trees.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to custom design every aspect of it to be easy to control, monitor, and deal with. And it works.
It works beautifully.
It works pretty much flawlessly. I mean, everybody talks about how they have amazing throughput. You never run into the group before or behind you.
Mm-hmm.
They have a lot of unique set pieces. And you see how they pull that off. It is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
The thought that went into that. I'm, to this day, endlessly blown away by it. But yeah, it can happen inside a haunt. They can form on their own. Just too many groups come together and they form their own conga line. And part of this is, like you said, haunt design. Part of this could be inadequate spacing between groups. And part of this could be actors not scaring forward.
Mm-hmm.
This is why we scare forward, kids.
Yeah.
Get on it. So yeah. But here's the truth. Sometimes a conga line is unfortunately needed. When demand far outstrips your capacity, I get it. I understand. We never go to the 13th gate later in season.
No. We always try to go on and off night.
We always try to go on and off night, and usually in the first 2 weeks they're open too.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because we know that if they get beyond a certain amount of people, they're going to have to run a conga line, and they're bypassing the elevators.
Mm-hmm.
Elevators are one of my favorite fucking parts of that haunt. And if I don't get my if I drive to fucking Baton Rouge and I don't get a elevator, I'm going to be hella mad. Well, I'm hella disappointed, more realistically. But you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's not going to be a good trip.
Mm-mm.
Be like Jen when we took her and told her that she found the sensor. Sorry.
Oh, gosh.
Anyways, but moving on. Yeah, it does happen. It is a sad but true necessity. So here's the thing, and I will admit to agreeing with Leonard Pickle on this. This is one of the things I think he gets very right. You might as well design your haunt for a conga line.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you might have to use it at some point. Even if you never plan on it, it's better to have a design that can sustain and scare well with a conga line than need to do a conga line and not have a haunt design that way.
Right.
Yeah, so, because a haunt designed to scare in a conga line can scare not in one too, is the point. But yeah, have lots of blind corners, place the scares around those corners, so that way people, like, one haunt I worked at was absolutely horrible about this. They put a drop panel at the very end of a long hallway, so you're going down this hallway for like 4 or 5 panels worth. They're going like 10, 15 feet here, right? Mm-hmm. And the drop panel's at the very end of it. Well, if you're running a conga line, at least 12 people back just saw the fucking drop panel.
Yeah, exactly.
And that scare is spoiled. No matter how well it was hidden, it's now spoiled. So yeah, use lots of blind corners. Put in your scares around those corners. Ensure that actor work spots can work in that environment. That their retreat spaces and so forth are still accessible in a conga line environment. And yeah, basically follow your basic tactics and make it work.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so anyways, in the end, this is about balance. Safety and practicality want you to push the group size down.
Mm-hmm.
It is easier and just safer, and in many ways much more practical to have a smaller group size especially in terms of your rooms and everything else. Mm-hmm. It's just easy. It's safety and practicality is trying to push down the group size, but your throughput, your customer experience, shocking enough to me, and the wear and tear on your haunts want it to come up.
Yeah.
So you have forces trying to push that number both ways. And anytime you have that, you have to find a balance. You have to find something that works for you. And yeah, this will be based on the size of your haunt, the demand for it, throughput that you need, what you can sustain safely. A million variables are going to go into this. And you have to figure all this out. You're the only one that knows all this information.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I really do hope that that haunt. I would like it, especially if you're building a new haunt,
mm-hmm.
or doing heavy renovations on a haunt.
Yeah,
I really think this should be a conversation you're having as you're doing that build and that renovation. Is how many people can we fit in this room, in this scare zone, in this whatever at a time?
Right. And how will we control the flow as the show's running? Yeah.
There's a real need to have these conversations as the haunt is being built. And it needs to be an ongoing conversation, too. You need to have this conversation continuously as you're training and recruiting actors, as you're working with the fire marshal and your security team. as you're doing all this stuff, you need to be talking and thinking about this. Because I'm going to tell it to you straight, actors are going to want small groups.
Yeah.
Actors love small groups because they can use their power to dominate the group very easily. Mm-hmm. It is much more difficult for an actor to dominate. They might get a better fear reaction, but that domination element for the actor is lessened if it's a large group.
Yeah. Unless you have maybe a group of actors working together for larger groups.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's something you can consider.
Yeah, like when we were at that Boy Scout, working that Boy Scout home, we had 4 people. We were able to dominate a group of 12 pretty easy.
Yeah, exactly.
We were good at that. I don't know how anyone didn't get killed, but surprisingly, no injuries that I'm aware of at that haunt.
No.
Absolutely should have been. Mm-hmm. Should have been a fucking bloodbath in there. Like a real kind. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically, we're not going to tell you what the number should be, though. We can't. You have the information, we don't, but we're telling you the types of things you need to think about. And that's going to be an ongoing conversation. And here's the thing. If you open up and you say, okay, we're doing groups of 4 to 8, bingo, bango, bongo, and for some reason it doesn't work on opening night, if your haunt is designed correctly, your haunt is designed well enough, you can change that group number to make it work for you. Mm-hmm. You can pivot on this. This is one of the few things you can change midstream, even in the middle of the night, if necessary. This is one of the few things you can control midstream, change, and make a real difference in how your haunt is running. Like if you find out that a room's not working in the haunt, you can't just go in and rebuild the room while you're open. And you may not even be able to fix it in between nights. Mm-hmm. But you can change this. This is something you can tweak and alter. Other than having to update your signage, probably, this is an easy thing to address. So please be thinking about it now, but also understand that the best laid plans often fall to shit.
Yeah.
Just be prepared for that. Well, that's all we have for this episode. We'll end it, I guess, a couple of minutes early. It's not that bad. No. We're about 47 minutes in. That's not too bad. Mm-mm. We appreciate you spending the past 45 plus minutes with us as we discuss seemingly a very mundane topic. This was Haunt Weekly, episode 325, discussing group size. Please take a moment, if you have not done so, catch us at hauntweekly.com. Give us a follow, a like, and all that good stuff at facebook.com/hauntweekly. Subscribe to us at twitter.com/hauntweekly. You can also subscribe to us at youtube.com/hauntweekly. Be alerted as episodes go live there. It is so great. If you have YouTube Premium, you can actually listen to the episodes in the background on your phone. You can tab away from your phone, do other shit with your phone while the episode's playing. You don't even have to subscribe to the podcast in your podcast player if you don't want to. Yeah. It's a pretty cool thing. So yeah, please join us there, and always find us at Google Play, Apple Podcast, Stitcher, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcast from. We're pretty much everywhere, to my knowledge. But until next time, I'm Jonathan.
I'm Crystal.
And we will see you all next week with what will probably be another mundane topic that's going to get way more interesting than it probably has any business doing.
Hopefully.
That's what we seem to do the best at. See y'all then.